Today's topic is centralized configuration. Centralized configuration means managing or maintaining all your application and microservices settings or configurations from a single place or centralized place. Instead of going to each microservices and maintaining your settings or configurations, it's easier to maintain it from a centralized place. It will increase the consistency and makes the updation of your settings easier. For example, if you have any applications that contains 10 microservices and each of them are talking to some database AWS resources or making call to any downstream API, to make those calls we need certain settings or configuration, for example the username or the proxy etc. To maintain those we need certain properties file for each environment to maintain it in all the deployable environment like dev qa and prod. We are maintaining this file. For example, if we are making change to any property like a proxy file, and that proxy setting is available for all the all the microservices. For example, we are using that proxy settings in microservice 1, microservice 2 and microservice 3. So we need to make changes to all the three files, all the three microservices for each of the environment dev q and prod, and deploy it and make it available to this microservices. If we are using the centralized configuration, in that case we just need to push those changes to a github repo, and it will make it available to all the microservices using a spring cloud bus. So we don't need to redeploy all the microservices to make those properties change available. So that there are the three major components of centralized configuration. The first one is GitHub repo, and another one is Spring Cloud config server, Spring Boot client config client. So the Spring Boot GitHub repo that contains all your configuration files or settings file. For example, it will look something like this. So you can have the GitHub repo that contains properties file for each environment. Like I have the environment, this is the default file I have for the qa and dev. So in this way you can maintain for all your microservices. The second component is config server. So the config server is managing all this properties file and make them available to a microservices. So for them, that we need a config server repository or like application that maintains, that makes these properties available to a microservices. For this we need to have the annotation called enable config server that makes, that activates the process of config server. And here we need to maintain one application properties file where we need to mention like from where we are pulling this properties to make them available for our microservices. So we are giving this path, and we have to give the port like whatever you are running, that's up to you. And apart from that, the third one is client config. The client config is nothing but basically as our microservices where we are consuming those properties files. So for example, this is your the client config or microservices where you are consuming that. So in this application properties file you need to maintain from which config server or which port you are importing it. Thank you so much.